Alright guys, time for a video that we all know has been coming. The Q1 2015 results for World of Warcraft are out, and you know what? They are absolutely damning, and I think they validate just about everything that I've been saying over the last while. And no harm to you, if you are one of those people that's, been saying, dude, you're always negative on the game, well, the numbers just have added up here, and they've confirmed my suspicions, and that makes me so sad. Because all that I want is for World of Warcraft to do well. I want it to be popular and be successful, and not because Blizzard made it so baseline that anyone can access it. No, because it's designed to be a good game. Let's get into the numbers. So, World of Warcraft back in June 2014 had 6.8 million, its lowest in many years, but then the sort of hype for Warlords of Draenor brought it up to 7.4 million in September. That's pretty good. Then, as of December 2014, 10 million subscribers, and they retained that from the WoD launch through December. And do you know what we're at now? We're at 7.1 million. They have lost 2.9 million subscribers in a 3-month period. Now what does that tell you? Well, it tells you that the content of patch 6.0 and 6.1 didn't keep people in the game. It tells you that it was not great content. Now, I'd say that, most of what I was able to say previously about that content was rather subjective. I was saying that I don't think it's great content. I don't have the numbers right now to back it up, but I've got a hunch that we're not going to do well. And all of those concerns have just been validated. All of my criticisms of the Apexis missions, of gear balancing, of all the various systems, garrisons as a whole, the fact that there's such a cynical retention mechanic, they have all been validated, and they haven't been validated by, I don't know, me doing research or something. They've been validated by the players who have left in their droves. To put that number in a different perspective, they lost over a quarter of World of Warcraft's player base in 3 months. That is... holy shit. What? What? I mean, you can probably tell I'm recording this off the cuff. I felt that, you know what, this was just, this is something I wanted to get out there right when I sort of felt like saying it. Now, we always lose subscribers after an expansion launch. That's pretty much how it goes. So, in order to, just, compare to past expansions, let's just have a look. So, we'll go with Wrath of the Lich King. You started off with that, September 2010, 12 million. Then into February 11, you had still 12 million, because Kata did have a strong launch. But then, from February to March 2011, we lost 600k, and then from March to June 2011, we lost another 300k on top of that. So the launch period of Cataclysm took us from 12 million to 11.1. A pretty big drop, but, I mean, it's nothing like 2.9 million, is it? No, it's not. Let's move on to good old Mists of Pandaria expansion, which I think it sometimes gets a bit of a bad rap. I kind of enjoyed some of the patch content, but anyway, let's look at the Pandaria numbers. So at the start of Mists, the game surged from 9.1 million up to 10 million, another really nice record. But then it dropped from September 2012 to December 2012, it dropped from 10 million to 9.6, and then from December 2012 to March 2013, it dropped all the way down to 8.3 million. That was a very big drop, but still, it pales in comparison to what they have lost in this first period of Warlords of Draenor. It any single drop in World of Warcraft's history has pretty much been tiny, or at least half the size of this one. I'm just trying to sort of put it into your head how monumentally large this decrease in interest has been. It frankly is. I mean, it's surprising, it's concerning, it's worrying, and at the end of the day, it's really, really fucking saddening. Really sad. I know some people seem to think that I've got it in for WoW and I hate the game somehow. That's very far from the case. Very far. So, if we just look at another sort of fun thing, the game went from 7.4 million in, pre-WoD to 10 million when it launched, and then right down to 7.1. What does that tell you? Well, it tells you that the launch of Warlords of Draenor was the strongest, I mean, on paper, in terms of increase in subs, it was the strongest ever. That's very impressive, right? They absolutely killed it with the launch of this expansion. But within 3 months of that launch, we now have less players than we had before the launch of Warlords of Draenor. to give you some more numbers, in June 2014, which was the pretty much like bang on the middle, or well, towards the sort of tail end of the Siege of Orgrimmar problem, we had 6.8 million. Right now, we've got 7.1. So even though we do have this fresh-ish content, I mean, it came out within the last few months, it is failing to sort of, you know, it's failing to match how good the content of patch 5.4 was like 9 or 10 months after release. And that just says everything, doesn't it? They've just cocked up really bad. I suppose that's really the simple way of saying things. Hey, before I continue with the rest of the video, I just want to point something out that I read in a transcript from the earnings call. Morheim said in that while the sub numbers have declined, they have had relatively stable revenue because, well, a strong uptake of value-added services, price increases across regions, and things like that. What have we seen in the game more? Well, we've seen that the cool mounts are generally in the store. In the UK, we've seen a price increase for the game, and across the board, we had a pretty sizable increase in the boxed price. Basically, what he's saying here is, we're losing subscribers, therefore we're going to squeeze the ones that are remaining for, you know, for more money. And I know that you would say that to beef up your sort of early, you know, numbers or whatever, but dude, come on, you said that publicly, and it backs up some very, you know, sentiments of players that are not good for you and your company. And I've got to say, if some players feel a little bit angry over hearing that, then I have absolute complete sympathy for them, because it feels bad when you feel like you're being treated like sort of cattle or being squeezed to, you know, make up for Blizzard's losses of subs. But when you actually hear Blizzard themselves say so much, it doesn't really feel great, does it? Anyway, I'll get back to what I was saying. Now, let's just go and talk about more game design-y things and why this may have happened. First of all, one thing I really noticed with Warlords is they upped the amount of retention mechanics in the game. And what do I mean by a retention mechanic? Well, you know the way back, and some of you may have been around in Facebook in this period, but there was a period when I was like, I don't know, from 13 to 17 or 16 or whatever, around then, when there was loads of Facebook games, like that Mafia one, that were really big, and you would send your little people off on missions. You know, it's similar to like, that goes on in Clash of the Clans, it goes on in, what was that game, Ebony, that had the ads that were all like, completely not to do with gameplay, that were weird. I think that was Ebony. But all of those games were, you know, clicking a thing, wait amount of hours, and then it happens. And that's called a retention mechanic because it is specifically designed to ensure the players come back in that 8 hours and play your game more. Now, in a free-to-play game, it's pretty obvious why that stuff's there, because you can click the speed up button. But in Warlords of Draenor, you know, they're putting in a bit of free-to-play game design, which generally is Skinner box game design, and they're putting into a paid subscription. And you know what this drop in sub says? That's the player saying, no, we do not want to be treated like cattle. We do not want to be strung on by these mechanics, which are not designed to be fun. They're designed to keep us inside your little box, in that garrison. That's what they are designed to do. And this is players just saying, no, we don't want that. We want to be treated like valued customers who expect, you know, bits of original content that are fun, that involve doing things, not clicking around on menus. Seriously, in Warlords of Draenor, unless you're a raider, you've probably clicked more menus than you have played your damn class. That's absurd. Now, moving on to other things that I suppose are a bit of a problem. The way gearing was done in this expansion was such that the optimal route to gear up is to ding, then to buy some crafted gear, and then once you've purchased that crafted gear, go right into LFR, and then at the same time farm up your garrison raid missions. The best path to gear is also literally the least fun. I think that's a little bit of a problem, and moreover, you can gear so fast in this expansion, so fast, that you're kind of done in a week. Unless you really are into alts, and a lot of people aren't into alts, which is absolutely a thing. And also, then again, if you are into alts, well, having another alt gives you another thing to do, but it also means, guess what? You've got to log into another garrison. And in a way, you kind of have to. You have to level them up to a stage where you have 675 followers, so you can get that BRF gear. And I think these retention mechanics have just soured people on the game and contributed to the whole issue of, oh, I feel stuck in my garrison, which is a really, really valid issue, and it's a problem a lot of people have been having. And if you say, well, you know what, that's fine, you can hop off somewhere else, and you can, you know, farm up the Void Talon of the Dark Star, get Pound Fist, do some of the reps of Warlords of Draenor, Come on, is that really good content? Is waiting for a spawn for like 12 hours fun? No, it's not fun. That's for a really niche audience. The reputations. Is grinding mobs for that amount of time, is that really fun? No, it's not. It's not even, it's hardly content. You know, all they have to do is add in a little timer, or not timer, like a counter for rep, and then just, they've already placed the mobs. There's no extra work to do. They could probably add all of those darn reputations in a few hours each. You know, I've got no idea what their code pipeline is or anything like that, but I'd imagine it was a very quick thing to do. Certainly a lot quicker and easier than it would be to, I don't know, make the Argent Tournament, make Netherwing, make any of those previous reps that gave people bits of content to do. And I know what you might be saying, well, you talked and you completely ragged on the idea of retention mechanics a while back. Well, are daily quests not a retention mechanic? Well, in a way, yeah, they are, but I think they're a well-designed one that fits an MMO, that fits the kind of game that WoW is. And over the years, that's been proven to us. Daily quests were first a thing in the Burning Crusade when the game had 8.5 million. Well, 8 million when it launched. By the way, yeah, we actually have less subs now than at the end of vanilla. Just put that in your head. Daily quests came in then. They did really well, you know, they've been in the game since, really, until Mists. And the first time they take them out seems to be when a lot of people start complaining about there being no world content. What about that, Blizzard? Now, of course, going back to Mists of Pandaria, they did have problems with dailies, and I'm actually going to do a video on the topic of dailies versus Apexis missions soon. I've actually recorded it already, and I think it brings up a lot of good points as to why both of them have their problems, but I think dailies edge out because of the way the Blizzard kind of really just design dailies and kind of make a structure with them that enforces a certain kind of gameplay aesthetic and feel. But I'll get onto that later. Now, another thing, of course, was Apexis dailies. Just that Apexis dailies, for a lot of people, didn't really provide gear that was particularly fun or interesting, and I'd say for those players who Apexis was a main source of gear, i.e. a lot of the non-raiders out there, I kind of have to question how much fun it is. Grinding many of those per day because of the gear was just so expensive. There are so many just issues with how things went out in Warlords of Draenor, and that makes me sad because, like, back in the beta, you know, about midway through, before it dawned on me that maybe 6.0 wouldn't have as much stuff in it as I would have liked, but back then what I was seeing looked really good. Really, really damn good. And they created the most, I'd say one of the most beautiful, cohesive worlds yet. They had made some fantastic music, great characters. Big shout out to Terran Gregory, by the way, throughout all of this. He's one of the Blizzard guys he was behind the Wrathgate cinematic, basically all the big in-game cinematics, the ones in Warlords of Draenor. Their team nailed it. The environment artists nailed it. The actual artists themselves nailed it. But my god, did the game design people they just shit the bed. They ruined everything. Okay, ruined everything's a bit of a big statement, but you get my drift. And, you know, I wouldn't say all these bold statements because I wouldn't have numbers to back them up, but now I do. That is a truly terrifying abandonment rate. Terrifying. It's, yeah, it's a bad time. I wish I wasn't here saying this. I really do. I wish I was here reporting really great news. I'm sure you all remember, back around the launch of Warlords of Draenor, or whenever it was that we got that big uptick in subscribers, and you probably remember, I was really fucking happy. I could not be happier with that news, and we've literally just got the opposite. And there's only one person to blame. Well, one entity to blame, I suppose. Blizzard Entertainment. And, I mean, Ghostcrawler's gone, so we can't blame him, right? Though I think, was it hashtag blame Halinka? That's the thing I've seen going around on Twitter. And I suppose when I mention him, not really related, but, PvP. It seems like PvP's been a really, really bad thing this expansion. I have not heard good things about Ashran, because of its design. I haven't found it to be that fun. As I recently covered in a video, though, I do think they are improving it for patch 6.2, so that's certainly nice to see. But PvP's not great. We just have to face the facts that a lot of the PvP players didn't enjoy Ashran. And as a PvE player, like, I participated in Wintergrasp a lot, from more than just the perspective of the gear, because I thought it was really kind of just badass and awesome. I never really got that from Ashran, and I think for a lot of people like me who would dabble in PvP just a little bit, maybe Ashran wasn't the best thing, in a way. And certainly for the core PvP people, not great. In terms of queued PvP content, there was nothing new this expansion. It's been over 2 years since we've had a new BG or arena, and class balance, from what I hear, has really been bad. on the PvP front, which of course sucks because as much as I may say, you know, I want a new battleground or a new arena, what matters to the people who are trying to push their rating and really play PvP is that they can do that within a level-ish playing field. I mean, it's never going to be truly balanced, and often true balance is extremely boring. But you want some semblance of balance, and maybe they have some semblance of balance for certain compositions, but it seems like there's big problems on the PvP front. And I'm back. Sorry, somebody called me in the middle of the recording. And really, that's all of the issues that I want to point out with the actual game at the minute. I think rating's great, by the way, but what I would say overall is that, you know, look at some of my past videos that have been a bit more critical, and if you think about it, like, I think I had some good points, and now they've been backed up by numbers, and I'm really sad that I was right. I would have loved it if Blizzard proved me wrong. And, yeah, so, anyway, let's talk about stuff that they could do to make it better and fix up the problem. And you know what? I'll probably do a video on this topic that's fully edited and, you know, really well thought out, maybe thought out, whatever. I'll probably do that in a bit. But I just want to say that right now, I think what Blizzard needs to do is really focus on the world content, because they haven't focused on that. All we've got is reputations that are a crappy grind, mounts that maybe appear every 12 hours, and the Apexis dailies, which I think time and time again, and as I will go on to pretty much cover in a future video about daily quests, they haven't been well received. People haven't played them. I don't think they've worked out that great. So the world content's not been there, and that means that in between raid nights, I've got nothing to do, but you know what? Boo-hoo for me. I still get raid nights. Most of the players in WoW don't raid, or at least I think it's roughly like that, at least a good percentage. And they need to be catered for as well. Because they're, you know, they pay their sub fee, they get access, but, and while I'd say, you know, they're not entitled to raid gear, I think you're only entitled to the really good gear if you raid, but you know what? I think they should expect to be getting content, and be getting stuff to do that's not a loot treadmill, or, well, you know, that's not a kind of cynical one like perhaps what's going on with the garrison. They need something there that's fun, and that has not been provided. So, overall, there needs to be, I think, a refocusing on world content. What that would mean, in my opinion, is bring back reps that are a bit more optional, that have, like, big storylines and fucking awesome stuff going on. Seriously, some of the reps in the past were great. If you didn't play them, then that's fine. You're just as well off, you know, then as you were now. That's grand. But for a lot of people, they were a big point of the game. So, bring back reps, bring them back with dailies, and you know what? It's been a long time since you've done sort of a new revamp of how daily quests are done. So maybe try daily quests version 2 or version 3, like a really kind of new way of doing things. You know, do that. Something new, something interesting with reps. And in terms of other world content stuff, I'd say that they really squandered the idea of having, like, dynamic world events that I think would, after a patch 5.3, I thought would have been great. That doesn't seem to be happening as much, and certainly Tanan Jungle feels a lot more static than I would like. It's just a bunch of Apexis areas. Well, why could it not be a giant battlefield with, like, enemy tanks roaming around the place, giant demons falling from the sky and attacking your base? You know, it doesn't feel like a war, so they could really do something like that. Now, there are some good things coming in 5 or 6.2. I like the idea of mythic dungeons. I think that's all very good. They need to make them a lot harder, though. As for Time Walker dungeons, I've already pointed out my problems with them. I think that stuff needs to be fixed, but if it is fixed, then you're looking at a really good bit of content, so that's absolutely nice. But essentially, my main gripe is world content. Now, another thing they need to do, I'd say, to make the game better is, please, less retention mechanics. I don't like being... I mean, when you log into the garrison, you feel like you're being strung on. You don't feel like you're a valued customer, no, you feel like you're just some number, and obviously, at the end of the day, you are a number. You know, when I say watch one of Total Biscuit's videos as an example, I know I'm a number. When I watch one of NerdCube's videos, I know I'm just a number. When I play WoW, I know I'm just a number with all of these things. As individuals, we are dwarfed by the vast number of people that have played those games, or watched those YouTube channels, or watched those TV shows. But I think that when you look at these subscriber numbers losses, you've just seen, and this is what really is staggering, you've seen 2.9 million people vote with their wallet. That's what this is. This is consumers saying no, and I think a large part of that has been that we feel like cattle. We don't want, you know, constant legendary quests, which basically force you to LFR. You know, either you're raiding anyway, so you're fine, or force you to LFR all the time just to stay on course. We don't want to feel like when you log in, right, I've got to do all my LFRs this week, I've got to do my, you know, stuff with the garrisons. So please, less retention mechanics, Blizzard. If you want a good legendary quest system, I think I pointed out a pretty viable one. It was a good few videos ago. Just check the channel for legendary stuff. But basically, it's the idea that instead of retaining people via getting them to grind LFR endlessly, you can retain them by really cool weekly quests, and then have the gating be based on your individual progress, and perhaps have stages of the legendary quest that are really, really hard. I think that's fine. Challenge people, come on! There is no challenge in World of Warcraft outside of extreme soloing and queued content, or group content like a raid. Where's that challenge in the world? Look, you've made a beautiful world, but A, you've not given people reasons to go there, and when you actually go into that world, you're never challenged. So it basically means that, like, there's not much gameplay in the world. Which is sad, because, as I said, they've made one of the most beautiful worlds they've ever made. I mean, look at Karabor. That's just wonderful. There are a few games that meet or surpass that art direction. Yet the one game with that art direction has clearly squandered it. And now in terms of other things, I'd say that one thing that's really important in terms of keeping players in the game is your interim patches in between raid tiers, I think, need to be pretty good, or at least need to be a bit more experimental in a way. We saw that if you look back at the numbers for Mists of Pandaria, and I've got them up here, but in that sort of middle period, the amount of subscribers the game had was actually stable. Now, if you contrast that to the middle of Cataclysm, during that, in Kata, it fell. But Mists of Pandaria managed to retain people. In terms of other expansions that have retained, you had Wrath of the Lich King, you know, it started off with 11.5 million, ended with 12. Okay, MoP did start with 10 and end with 6.8, but in that middle period, it was a flat line. A flat line of subs, so those interim content patches need to be good, they need to experiment. 5.1 was great. 5.3 could have had more, but I think it had some really nice ideas that they've sadly failed to capitalize on since. But yeah, essentially, there needs to be better interim patches. What they need to do is have less retention mechanics and better world content, because I don't think the world content's been great. And also, in terms of the overall gear balancing, Blizzard, can you please not balance your game such that you make the fun stuff in your game completely invalid? I don't like how the absolute easiest way to gear up a character is also the fastest one. It basically means that the hard, challenging, or sort of hardish, whatever, you know, maybe a bit challenging, engaging gameplay that keeps people kind of wanting to play the game because they just did an awesome thing, that stuff's gone. I think a lot of their game design has been based around stringing people on with rewards, and that's good for a while, but as I said, I remember actually saying this back maybe a month after WoD, that I didn't think it was a sustainable method, and that while garrisons would go... Actually, fuck it, I said this back in the beta. I said garrisons would be well received, but after a while people would get burnt out, and they have got burnt out, we can see that. So, basically they need to fix all those problems and just balance their gearing so that the really engaging fun stuff is what gears you up fastest, but also that, you know, the easy sort of keck, you know, lol mode stuff isn't the most optimal. And yeah, okay, sometimes it's nice to just hop into an LFR, get some gear, and come out again, but overall, I don't think that's great game design. A lot of the time, players do things or like things because of the reward, but they're not really looking at the overall picture. And, you know, thinking, is this good for the game? Is this good for the way this kind of socially engineers the player base? You know, what does this do? What's the wider implication of this? A lot of the time, they sort of think more about what's the fastest way for me to get loot so I can go do my raid. Well, I think you need to think a bit bigger than that. And yeah, so basically, yeah, as I said, just fix all those things, provide more content, have better interim patches, and you know what, Blizzard? You're kind of back on a roll. What I'd say is, look at the Burning Crusade, and look at Wrath of the Lich King, look at the stuff that was going on in there. You had, like in TBC even, the idea of attunements, and this is something I plan on covering. Attunements, in my opinion, can be done well, because they can craft a epic endgame story where you're doing epic quests, maybe on the par of the sort of legendary or whatever class quests of old that people loved, or things like that. But what you have to do is, of course, make attunements sane, make them account-wide, and also make them so that they're not ridiculous barrier to entry that really just is prohibitive words, lol, whatever. I'm not going to cut that one out because I'm on a roll, but basically, just give us some more tail at endgame. Look at the old expansions. In Wrath, I don't think we had the best sort of stage of world content at the start, but I think the Argent Tournament, despite the fact it was way too grindy, yes, I know, you can stop pointing that out, it was too grindy, but it had some good ideas. Hell, even in Cataclysm, like, I thought the Molten Front stuff was decently fun. But yeah, lots of little, things like that. Netherwing and the various mount factions and things like that made the world feel open and full of stuff. That needs to be taken into account and considered, because Warlords of Draenor doesn't have it. And even if you look at Mists of Pandaria, even during its big content drought, if you look back, there was actually a massive content in the world. You had loads of reps, you had loads of, well, rares if you're really into that, but you had a lot of things, and patch 5.1 provided a good lot of story content as well. There was a lot to lean on in the world if you were getting bored, whereas in Warlords of Draenor, if you're bored of your raid, there's not a great deal else to do. So, look, it's been 25 minutes nearly, and for some reason my mic actually cut out, and the next 4 or 5 minutes of things that I was about to say have been lost into the ether, and I have no idea what I was saying. But essentially, my overall vibe is this. Blizzard can fix this. They can do better. Why? Well, we know they can. We have seen them make amazing content in the past, and overall, as much as this video brings terrible news that sucks, what we want is good, right? This needs to be constructive. This whole process, Blizzard need to learn. That's what we all want. Let's hope they do. If you have personal feedback, now is the best time to put it on the forums, because I've got to admit, imagine that in Blizzard, they are shaking in their boots. The developers, the game designers, they must be a bit worried about themselves and how they're performing. So I'd say now more than ever, they will be receptive to feedback and they will want to hear what people say. In the past I've said that often bits of individual player feedback don't really, they're not really worth that much, because often players are like, they give feedback that's all about, hey, give me more things in less time. They're always biased towards getting more rewards and more things like that. But now I think it's got so bad that maybe they need to start listening for other people's ideas, because if they listen to enough players, I'm sure some of those people will have ideas that are of the caliber of World of Warcraft, because that's a lot of people. So if you've got feedback, please leave it. I implore you, because I want this game to be good. I hope you want it to be good too, and we all need to play our part if we want that to be the case, because maybe Blizzard aren't going to be able to do it on their own. We'll have to see. Anyway, thank you very much for watching the video. I'm sorry that it's a downer, but hopefully this time, next year perhaps, I'll be bringing you far better news. And I do, of course, I want to be here this time next year doing World of Warcraft stuff. So hopefully it's good. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.